I'd like you to join me in synthesizing acoustic sounds. Let's begin. Hi and welcome back to a fine episode of Thomann Synthesizers with me, Jason Jervis. Today we are going to be looking at recreating acoustic sounds with a synthesizer. Yes, way back in the day when synthesizers were at their dawn, it took pioneers like Wendy Carlos to push and to have them accepted into the serious world. Wendy's seminal work, Switched on Bach, really did help turn this whole thing around so that we here can sit with this machine, you and me, with whatever you have at home and whatever I've got here, and enjoy synthesizers. So, what did she do? She synthesized classical music by recreating the sounds of the orchestra. So we're going to have a crack at that now with this Odyssey. So today, we're going to look at strings and start with the violin. Okay, so let's think about what makes a string sound, what makes a violin. And it's got a fairly bright sound, but maybe not overly bright, not brassy. So we're thinking perhaps a sawtooth, but maybe not bright, so we'll bring down the resonance. So high-pitched, small instrument, so we'll start middle C, 2 octaves up, saw, single oscillator. Right, frequency of the filter is at 50%. That's too brassy, isn't it? Pull it back a bit. Maybe that. Okay, so that's an instant sound. Think about how you bow, it starts slow. So let's look at the envelope. We'll perhaps open the envelope up a little bit. We've got a fairly average looking envelope there. Okay, it's a good starting point. Okay, let's drop down. Of course, the decay, it just abruptly stops. You've got a small amount of resonance in that tiny little body, so you wouldn't have much release. Maybe a little bit of decay and sustain. Oh, that's quite nice. It almost sounds like the bow is going across the string quite nicely there. So once the decay drops, you get the sustain. So that's quite nice. I think that kind of does it. Typically, I think someone playing a violin is going to introduce a bit of vibrato. So let's have a look at that. LFO to sine wave. And let's bring in a bit of there. And about 2 kilohertz there. Now it's starting to get there. So that's great, that's given us the sound of one violin quite well. I'm quite happy with that actually. So what happens if we add the second oscillator? Maybe create a bit of an ensemble vibe. So obviously with this being a monophonic synth, we will be limited, but let's just throw the rulebook out. Let's just have a little see where we can go with that. Second oscillator. I think it needs the same vibrato, right? Suddenly, you're getting something a little bit interesting. That, for my money, that sounds like it's heading towards mellotron territory, which I'm happy with that, being a prog rock fan. Okay, I quite like that. You can also tune it to like an interval. So that's a third. We can add a bit of reverb there to emulate the sound of a hall, or a theatre in this case. Very spooky, very eerie. All right, what if we changed the waveform from a saw to a pulse, and we play with the width? Now we're starting to get into the land of string machines, which actually, that's quite very paddy. If this was a polyphonic synth, what about some pulse width modulation? Of course, the Odyssey is duophonic. So that's what it sounds like with an Odyssey. What does it sound like on another synth? I've got the Vermona 14. Let's try that sound out on this. I'm going to try and replicate what we had for the violin sound on the Vermona. It's a lot brighter, isn't it? So I'm bringing in a bit of sub-oscillator there. Right, and if I bring in the second oscillator, we're getting our synth string back. Actually, now it's beginning to sound a bit more string-like. I've got that on the pulse, and there's a bit extra harmonics coming in there. I like that. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Just to show you that you don't need the Odyssey to create a string sound like that. In fact, pretty much any subtractive synthesis should enable you to take that exploratory voyage into sound synthesis and thinking about how an instrument actually sounds acoustically and trying to replicate that. And it may even take you out of your comfort zone. Your homework is to go, turn on any synth you like and try and create a violin sound. And please, in the comments below, let me know how you got on. I'd love to hear from you. Cool, so don't forget to like, subscribe, share and enjoy. Until the next time, put a bow on it.